All right, joining us now is Dean Crutchfield, Senior Vice President with Sterling Brands. Dean, always good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Michelle.
Thanks for joining us. So we saw in the report that due to currency fluctuations, luxury companies are taking a different stance with their pricing policy. Companies like TAG Heuer is having to readjust the policy because of the appreciation on the franc. And so you get to a point where the same product is available for about 30% cheaper in another country. And so they're trying to cut prices down across the board. What do you think?
Well, I think that it gives a good reason for people to travel and shop. There's no doubt about it. You know, if you can save, 50% on buying a bag in Paris and Beijing, why not take a trip to Europe and buy it? And a lot of those middle class, consumers in China are doing exactly that.
But this idea that in order to challenge the currency fluctuations and price differentials, you have TAG Heuer watches, for example, being priced lower in China or in other countries to make up for the Swiss appreciation. Do you think that this is a good idea? Does this dilute the brand?
I think it does dilute the brand. And a luxury brand's about exclusivity, and a key part of that is price. It's that price perception that gives it the exclusivity. So that's a critical part of the business model, and it allows them to generate hundreds of % of margin. So
we've seen that the slowdown in China combined with the anti-corruption drive has now resulted in a slowdown in luxury sales. How are retailers and brands adjusting to this? What can they do?
Well, first of all, let's put it in perspective. The global market for luxury goods is about $225 billion or more. That's $250 billion. And nearly half of that is reliant upon the Chinese consumer. So China is absolutely critical. But that doesn't just mean mainland. 70% of the goods bought by Chinese consumers are bought when they're traveling internationally. So that means the luxury brand market in China or mainland is about $35–40 billion worth. So clearly there's opportunities to build more footprint there.
Well, travel shopping is a very big play, as you mentioned. But with this anti-corruption drive, does this change the perception of people wanting to appear less ostentatious, less flashy, less branded, if you will?
The Chinese have a very strong identity when it comes to symbols of status, and luxury is certainly one of those. But there's several other factors apart from the anti-graft campaign. You've got high import tariffs in China. You also have consumer tax, which is high, that could add up 50% on a bag or a pair of shoes. Then you've got this drive about anti-graft, and that's putting a curb on gift giving. So yes, it's a combination of a perfect storm.
Is there a particular trend that you see emerging now within the luxury market in China?
I think what we're going to find is that that there's going to be like a new normal, like a balancing of what's been happening there. Also, you have to understand that the sophistication of the Chinese buyer. Again, 2/3 of them are buying products abroad. They know that. They understand that. So there's a lot of sophistication, a lot more knowledge, and there's a lot more opportunity online to get the goods they want for less.
Well, you mentioned online. How are the sites like Alibaba, for example, changing the landscape for luxury brands and being able to buy them at cheaper discounts?
Well, it depends where they source the product. You see, a lot of branding in luxury brands is about less is more. You control your brand equity by the amount of units that you sell. Now, when you start dealing with online platforms, volume becomes an entirely different game. So it affects the business model in quite a dramatic way. So the problem for the luxury brand owners is to how they can maintain a control over the stock that's being sold.
It's all about prestige and exclusivity then?
That's what luxury brands are about.
What about the crackdown on counterfeit goods, which is happening very strongly in China at the moment? Is that boosting the luxury market even more?
I wouldn't say if it's going to buoy the market there. I think that it's complementary, right? I mean, if you've got a luxury brand, it's bound to get copied, and the more it's copied, the more luxury that you are as a brand, as opposed to.
So imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Absolutely, especially in the world of luxury. So people want to associate themselves with luxury, whether it's a $5 bag or a $5,000 bag. They want that association. They want that relationship with that logo.
There are various tiers of luxury, from the Calvin Klein to the Armani or Gucci. How do the Chinese consumers position themselves according to those tiers?
They love the upmarket brands, absolutely. The Guccis, the Chanels, These are the brands that they are highly coveted. These are the brands they know, and they understand the status that they have, like they have in the West, they have now in the East.
Do these brands market themselves differently to the Chinese consumer than they do elsewhere in the world, to the European or the American consumer?
Well, interesting actually, that a lot of the Chinese luxury buyers don't want things made in China. They like things made abroad, and luxury goods tend to have that. So that's one thing that's very much pushed to that Chinese audience, is the international origins of these luxury brands that they're offering. So that's a key part of that marketing.
All right. Thank you so much, Dean Crutchfield, Senior Vice President with Sterling Brands. We're going to have to leave it there.